Welcome to Beyond Acting Other Jobs in Theater Featured Artist Series on Stage Managers. Let's meet the Zoom panel.
Howdy, my name is Dalton and I am a stage manager.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Fast. That's Shadow. I am a stage manager and a member of Actors Equity Association.
Great, thank you for being here today. So tell us, what does it mean to you to be a stage manager?
It's not easy to simply explain what the role of a stage manager is because it's such a complex position.
The funniest way to describe being a stage manager is herding cats.
For me, it's all about facilitation. Mainly facilitation of communication, making sure that all of the parties involved receive all of the information that they need in order to do their jobs.
A slightly more serious answer would be that you are responsible for knowing the show inside and out and making sure that when the show opens and goes live and the director is no longer there, that it runs exactly as it should every single night, and that anything that doesn't run as it should is fixed and corrected.
We are a hub. We are a hub that helps facilitate all of the action that has to happen around us in order to make the production happen.
And what is your process like? From offer to end of contract, what is the process like for a stage manager?
I would divide it into 4 sections. The first would be pre-production, then the rehearsal process, then tech, and then performance.
The core job of a stage manager will be the same regardless of what theater you're at, but some of the specifics might change.
Pre-production can definitely vary widely.
The specifics that I will be going through will be my work with Bohemian Theater Ensemble, or BOHO, which is my artistic home.
During pre-production, oftentimes because you only come on 1 week before rehearsals start, you spend a lot of time trying to catch up on all of the decisions that have been made prior to your involvement. You're finding out what the scenic design is, what are the props lists that the director and props designer have agreed upon, what is the costume design like, how is that going to impact the actors moving around the room. Sit
down with the director and find out what sort of their free time is.
Putting together a scene breakdown during your pre-production process, to me, is one of the most crucial things. This is basically which actors are in which scene. You can divide the scenes up into increasingly small sections, depending on how you know the director likes to work.
Get a list from them of all of the other designers who will be working on the show.
I also create something called a production analysis, which is basically reading through the script with a fine-tooth comb to see any elements that are called for in the script that will require a designer or a director's input. So this ranges from, oh, there's a sound cue of a doorbell ringing on page 5 to, oh, it mentions that one character slaps another, so do we have a fight director involved?
We go ahead and send out an email blast, coordinate some times to have our first production meetings.
Making contact with the cast, finding out if there are any needs they have, finding out what pronouns they have, what their contact information is, if they have any schedule conflicts, just tons of communication with the cast, communication with the production team just to let them know who you are and what you're there for.
The first couple of production meetings will be meetings between the director and the different designers.
Taping out the set, so basically setting up the rehearsal room as a whole, making sure that you are best able to facilitate the rehearsal process.
BOHO likes to have something that we kick off called a gathering, which is our very first meeting, and it's a meeting between the designers, the BOHO artistic group, all of the actors in the show. It is a large presentation of what the designers have already been working on to get the actors excited. And then the next night, we go ahead and jump into rehearsals.
The next thing would be the rehearsal process. So your responsibility as a stage manager is to help the director come up with a schedule for either the week or the day or the hour. Usually days and times are already set, but going ahead and setting who is called when, what you guys will be working on, what times the director wants to work on certain things, and whether those times are hard limits or whether if they need a little bit of extra time, you can allow them to go ahead and fudge that to give them that time. To help them stay on schedule and to stay on task. You then go ahead and put the call out to the actors so that they know when they are showing up. You're always looking at what's happening in the rehearsal room through a lens of who might need this information and then disseminating that through the rehearsal reports. In the physical rehearsal itself, you are responsible for making sure that the director stays on topic and
in the allotted time that they allowed.
You're also there as a resource for the actors. You're there as their support system. And one of the things that I find like most valuable as a stage manager is what can I be doing to allow them to do their job to the best of their ability?
You're wanting to make sure that you keep track of the time and that you give the actors their required break. So giving that 5-minute break every hour or 10-minute break every hour and a half.
Record anything that's happening in rehearsal that may be useful in the future. So this is everything from where an actor has chosen to move on stage, or when they picked up a certain prop, so that when you revisit this scene in a week and they ask you, when did I do this? You can tell them that information. That's what we call taking blocking.
At the end of each rehearsal, the stage manager is responsible for sending out a rehearsal report to the director and the designers of what happened in that rehearsal that night, as well as any notes for each individual designer. One of the things that you will do is start to set up a designer run. And this is once every scene has been gone through, or at least every scene in an act. You set up a time where the designers can come into the rehearsal space and the entire thing is run.
Then the tech process, that's where you get into getting all of the cues from all of the various departments that are going to have cues in the show.
The stage manager is responsible for making sure that everyone arrives on time, that there is a plan for each day of tech, and that you stay as close to schedule as possible. Tech is not a time to fudge the schedule unless there is a problem that immediately needs to get fixed.
Making sure that you understand what all those cues are so that you're able to call them effectively.
The goal is to make sure that everything is ready to open on preview night.
Tech is your opportunity to figure it all out, and the stage manager kind of gets their moment to shine there with orchestrating how all of that is going to occur.
Once you get to previews, that is essentially almost like a soft opening. You have an audience there for the first time. As a stage manager, you will be up in the booth calling the show. This means that if you are in a large enough theater that you have someone running the projections and the lights and the sounds with you, you have your script in front of you with every single light cue, sound cue, projection cue, and any other cues that you might need marked in your script, and you are going through and calling them. If you are in a smaller theater like Boho is, then you are personally, you're not just calling the show, but you are running these boards as well. If you need to stop the show for any sort of reason, mainly for safety reasons, that would be the big one, you have the flexibility, and you always have the flexibility to do that, but a little bit more in preview.
For the performance process, that is when, if you've done your job right, if you've paid attention, if you've worked really closely with the director and the actors throughout the rehearsal and tech process, you should have a really solid understanding of what the artistic intention is for the show. Not just working with the directors and actors, but also with the designers, so that you are able to make sure that the artistic vision is maintained throughout the run of the show.
If anything starts to feel a little off, you are responsible to give notes to the actors to go ahead and work scenes so that it goes ahead and relines back with that vision. And the final thing is just to make sure that everything is running smoothly and that everyone is comfortable. This is one of the core pieces of being a stage manager, and that is making sure that the actors are comfortable and are supported in what they do, and that the director has the support of their team as well.
Just making sure that whatever the vision that the designer or the director had is still maintained to the degree that it can be.
Finally, when it comes to strike, making sure that all the costumes and props are put back where they need to be, and then having a final just touch point with the actors, thanking them for their time and their dedication and hard work on the show, and letting them know that you hope to work with them again soon.
And what is the time frame of commitment like for a stage manager?
Time frame varies depending theater by theater.
The stage manager has a really unique role when it comes to the time frame of our involvement.
I normally know a couple months in advance if I'm going to be working on a show. If I'm working outside of Boho, there's a chance that I might find out, maybe a month sometimes before they get into rehearsals. The rehearsal process, again, depends on the theater. Boho normally does, I think it's like 6 to 7 weeks of rehearsal, including tech. I had been in shows that are shorter than that. Maybe it's like a month of rehearsals.
So there's a lot of responsibility with that. And that is why so much communication falls to us to facilitate.
For the run of the show, again, dependent theater by theater, If you're working in a larger theater, you might have months of a run. If you're in a smaller theater company, you might have, a weekend, maybe two.
Because unless I'm forgetting anyone, we are the only people involved in the process, like directly in person involved in the process from before rehearsals through the end of performances. We are one of the only through lines.
And what is your favorite part about being a stage manager?
There are honestly, for me, so many best parts of the job.
The best part about being a stage manager is being able to work with a ton of awesome people.
I love that I get to work so closely with so many incredibly talented artists.
You get to go ahead and interact with the actors. You interact with the director. You get to interact with the designers.
I love that I get to witness art being created, not just like existing, but the whole creation of it.
In my case, as being part of a company, I get to interact with the company as well.
Some of the moments that stick with me the most are stage managing a rehearsal process and watching an actor have a breakthrough or a realization or an understanding about the role they're playing, because those are really special moments that you don't see in performance. No one else gets to see those except the people actually in the rehearsal room. So it's really cool to get to witness those. I also love, I love like having all of the information. I love that sense of like fully understanding and control. Definitely is one of the best things for me.
To really just work alongside a lot of brilliant and fantastic people. And I think that's the best thing.
One of the other best parts for me as a point of pride is when I do my job well. I create a piece of paperwork, either a quick change document for costume designers or props tracking, and I'm able to give it to someone and they say, oh, thank you, that made my job so much easier. I take a lot of pride in that, and so that's always really exciting when I'm able to do my job well enough that it makes someone else's life easier.
And what's the worst part about being a stage manager?
The worst part about being a stage manager is having to herd cats.
I think one of the most challenging things about stage management is that you have a lot of responsibility, but you don't usually have any of the power.
And I say that because as brilliant as all the people are that you work with, there will inevitably be at least one person who doesn't understand time frame, who has their own idea of how things should work, and it's just making sure that you're going ahead and bringing them back into line as kindly as possible with the overall vision of the piece, and making sure that you guys are working together to tell a coherent story and that everyone is safe and artistically fulfilled.
I'm responsible for letting the props designer know what the director wants about prop X. But I can't let my opinion go in there at all. I have to make sure that I am just passing the information along. I don't actually get a say in what that prop looks like or how it functions. The other thing is, from a management point of view, there's definitely a misconception, because our title is stage manager, that we are part of management. And so a lot of times people will get angry if they bring an issue to the stage manager and the stage manager doesn't handle it. But really the problem is that we often don't have the authority or the ability to handle it, aside from passing it along to the people that do have the power to address it.
And that can be challenging. It's not horrible by any means, but it is a challenge to be aware of, and something that can make you hit your head against a wall if someone is being particularly resistant.
And how about some necessary skills for the job? What skills make for a good stage manager?
So there are a few things that make for a good stage manager, and I'd say that overall it's more soft skills than hard skills.
The number one thing for me when I'm looking to hire a young stage manager to work with me is, do you have a willingness to learn? Are you excited about this job, and are you excited to get better at it?
Being able to learn and open to learning, because you will be interacting with people who know much more about their subject than you ever will, and being able to ask them the questions that you need to learn how to run the show, and knowing that they know what they're talking about to teach you this.
Adaptability and flexibility are going to be so, so crucial in that.
Communication. You have to be able to communicate, and not just in one particular style. You will be talking with everyone. So you have to understand how different people communicate.
With technological changes, with developments just in the theater world and new ideas, I think so much of what we do is related to our adaptability, our flexibility, our understanding of what the particular needs are for a certain production or for a certain cast or a certain director that you're going to work with, and not being so locked into your ways that you're unable to adjust to what those needs are.
You need to be clear in your communication. You need to be punctual and timely, because you will be there before everyone else gets there, and you will be there after they leave.
I think it's super important to have really good organizational skills, both just in how you take notes, also how you keep information in your brain, how you structure your to-do list and the tasks that you need to accomplish as a stage manager in order to facilitate the process. But the organizational skills are also something that can be developed.
A lot of the specifics of being a stage manager, learning a particular way to mark your book, learning how to go ahead and work on the different devices that you might be calling the show from, that can all be taught.
I think obviously being good at working in a team and collaborating with others, just really for any job in theater, is super crucial.
You need to be a people person. If you don't like interacting with people, don't be a stage manager.
Attention to detail as a stage manager is definitely important, making sure you catch little minutia of what might happen in the rehearsal room that needs to be communicated.
Enough of an understanding of how to fix stuff that breaks. And again, that can be taught.
Staying calm under pressure is definitely important because when something does go wrong or when something goes awry, a lot of people will turn to you to see how you're reacting, to see how they should be reacting. So being able to keep a neutral face and staying calm, being able to handle a crisis, being able to make quick decisions, being decisive, trusting your gut, all of these are things that can be developed, and just gaining more experience will make you better and better at them. Being a good listener is really important. I think because you will be a sounding board for directors, designers, actors, when they just need reassurance that what they're doing is right, or when you're the other person in the room and they just need to bounce an idea off of someone. Being a good listener has definitely served me really well in my career.
And as a stage manager, what is your favorite thing you'll never have to do? Basically, what is the one thing that you love about stage management because you'll never have to do this thing?
So I know a lot of stage managers will make the transition into production management because they are similar in theory, similar jobs in theory. However, one of the reasons I have no desire to get into production management is that as a stage manager, you don't really deal much with budgets. I'm always really grateful that I don't have to worry about that bottom line or answer to the producer or artistic director about where we are in the budget. So that's one of the really nice things that as a stage manager, I'm glad I never have to do.
The thing that I enjoy not having to deal with is not having to be on stage and hit the high notes, because I can't sing for shit. And then for the most part, you don't have to deal with the audience members. If an audience member is upset, you have a house manager, and it is their job to deal with them while you can focus on the show.
And as a stage manager, who is it good to be friends with and have a strong working relationship?
As a stage manager, I think you need to be best friends with everyone, which is a bit crazy.
It's important to be friends with everyone, but the people that can make your life easier. One, people who know how to communicate.
The nicer you are to everyone, the more likely they will treat you well.
Finding those communicators is key.
I mean, really, as the stage manager, because you're interacting with everyone, you don't want to burn any bridges. You don't want to put a bad taste in anyone's mouth related to their working relationship with you.
Actors who are great to work with are actors who understand the process. Knowing that, hey, this part right now, we're focusing on this, it's not about me. Hey, I know that I need to hit my mark, and if I have an idea, there is a certain time to go ahead and bring that up, unless someone's health or well-being is in immediate danger, in which case you can call that out whenever.
That being said, I definitely think everyone should want to be best friends with the stage manager, because even though you don't have like real authority, you do have the ability to influence a lot of things.
Really, it's finding the people who are wanting to collaborate, who are aware of the people that they work with and are willing to listen, and know when to go ahead and step in to give their ideas in a constructive, useful way. Those are the people that you really want to cultivate fantastic friendships with. And to be frank, those are the people that get called back to work with you again and again, because they're a pleasure to work with.
And what if someone is interested in stage management but wants to try something with slightly different skills or levels of responsibility? What might be some other jobs they might consider?
The job that's closest to stage management that isn't stage management is assistant stage manager. But glibness aside, it would actually probably be the production manager, which is very similar to what the stage manager does, but they're not having to be at rehearsal every night. It is a fair amount less time commitment in person, but what they're having to do is go ahead and oversee a lot of the design work and making sure that everything there is on track and ready, and that the designers are supported in what they need.
If I had to pick another job in the theater industry besides stage manager that I wanted to do, I think it would be props designer.
If you like the hands-on approach, but not so much the coordination part of it, then you might like being a director or some sort of choreographer, because that way you're still working with a lot of individuals, but you're not having to go ahead and track every single technical element. I
just always love the challenge of, okay, we need this prop, it needs to look like this and be able to do these things. And then you it's a problem that you have to solve. I just love that aspect of like, nothing in props is what it looks like. Everything's got something about it that makes it appropriate for that particular show or the use in that particular show. And I just find that like a super exciting challenge.
Finally, if you like the technical elements and like a little bit of interaction, then some sort of designer actually.
You get to use your creativity, but within like a certain constraints where you're not necessarily inventing something new. You're like being given an object and being told, cool, adjust this so that it can accomplish something. And I think that, it's similar to stage management where you're like, cool, here's what you're given, make sure that it works right, make sure that the show happens, and you have to find creative ways sometimes in order to make sure that that happens.
So realizing that purchasing isn't a large part of being a stage manager, you both mentioned there aren't many stories to go with my favorite question of coolest or weirdest tax deduction or exemption. But Dalton, you did mention some interesting experiences?
So as a stage manager, you're not going to be purchasing a lot of stuff out of pocket. That's normally the designers or the theater itself. So I don't have too many stories about that. We did get to go ahead and purchase a large miter saw that I did get to say was tax deductible. The other thing is, as a stage manager, especially for a small theater, you might be spraying down costumes every night. So going ahead and buying large bottles of vodka and saying, no, I promise, this is for my job, is just a fun thing to say.
Let's shift gears and talk about your personal inspiration. Who or what inspired you to be a stage manager?
The way I got into theater and stage management in particular is pretty random. My middle school started a theater program when I was in 7th grade, and then after seeing that production, I was like, that looks like a really cool group of people that I want to hang out with. But I knew I did not want to be on stage. So in 8th grade, when there was a call for anyone who was interested in doing stage crew, I showed up, and I was the only 8th grader. Everyone else who showed up was in 6th grade, so they made me the stage manager. And of course, what I was doing was not even a little bit what stage managing actually was, but I wore that title proudly all throughout middle school and then high school. So I continued to do it in college as an extracurricular. And then I got a stage management internship after my freshman year of college. And that for me was really a boot camp of like, here is what stage management really is. And I loved it. I loved all of the work I was doing. I loved the people I was meeting and working with. And so it kind of became, you know what, there is nothing else I would rather do. And until I find something else I would rather do, I'm going to stick with this until I can't anymore.
I've done theater throughout all of school. But then when I was in high school specifically, a lot of my friends were doing the shows my freshman year, and I decided, well, that looks like fun. I'll go ahead and give it a try. Ended up going to college for just theater in general and doing acting and designing and stage management and a little bit of directing. So I've done pretty much the whole gamut. There's just something about the live energy of being in a theater during a show, of, you know, not being able to go ahead and say, oh, cut, we did this wrong. Just if something happens, you have to go with it. And having that live audience there to interact and give back as they're receiving the performance from the actors. In stage management in particular, I just sort of, you know, like I said, I did a bunch of stuff. Professionally, I stumbled into doing that and found that I could keep doing it. I liked the people that I worked with. So find people like that to work with.
And for our last question, tell us about your dream project. This could be a specific show, aspect of a show, or even a different venue or medium. What is your dream project?
I don't necessarily have dream projects or dream productions the same way that other people do, because I've found that sometimes the shows that I'm least excited to work on wind up being my absolute favorites. For me, it comes down a lot to what is the show that I don't mind watching 20 to 40 to 50 to 100 times. I would love to work on a production of Les Miserables. I would love to work on a production of Cabaret. I just love that show so much. But also, part of what I know that I need as a stage manager is to be working on productions that inspire me and where I am surrounded by truly talented people, because that makes it exciting to watch the same production over and over and over and over. Because even though it's always the same production, there's still good actors will find a way to make it exciting, or there might be that light cue at the end of a number that just really hits right, or a cue sequence that's really fun to call that you don't mind doing it over and over and you look forward to that moment every night, or the swell of the music, you know, just like hits you in the right way that you get excited to see that. I don't ever want to negate the ones that that weren't my dream. I don't ever want to not give them their chance to like totally enchant me.
I don't have a specific project in mind, but I love working on shows with stage combat in them. The precision that it takes to go ahead and call light cues and sound cues off of specific sword strikes, especially if it's a fast fight, is just a lot of fun. And there's a bit of an adrenaline rush. It's challenging and difficult, but it's just really fun. So I'd say any show with that sort of like just suddenly quick call that normally accompanies stage combat, but also could accompany any show where something just really frantic is happening on stage and you just have to be focused and right there.
Awesome. Let's wrap up with some final thoughts. Your closing statements, please.
Just some things to reiterate. Make sure that you are good at communication. Make sure that you are doing what you want to do. And know that everyone else, especially non-equity theater, is there doing this because they also want to do it. No one's getting paid huge amounts to do storefront theater. They do it because they love it. So make sure that you love it, and know that everyone wants you to succeed. Everyone is rooting for you. No one, especially when you're working on a show, wants you to fail. Because if you succeed, then the show succeeds. So you have a bunch of people to lean on. You have a bunch of people to help you. And just give it your all and make sure that you support others who are giving it their all.
It's your job also to just handle any issues that come up during performance. I think it's super important to try to foresee possible issues, if you're working with automated scenery or if there's something that tends to get glitchy at a certain time every time. Talk to your designers and your director to find out how they would prefer you to handle that situation. But sometimes things come up and the show must go on, and you have to figure out a way to make sure that you proceed safely and forward. You have to make sure that you find a way to proceed as safely as possible. And that involves making some difficult decisions sometimes. Holding a show is one of the most terrifying things for me as a stage manager, because you're really breaking that fourth wall that the audience is buying into. But it is necessary, and it is, I think, important as the production stage manager to understand your responsibility to maintaining the safety of all of the people involved, to overseeing the safety of all of the people involved in making difficult decisions when necessary.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here today and sharing your wisdom. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks all.